you for coming today. We're letting people in as we go, but I just wanted to say hi. I'm Shonda. I'm the Director for Post-Secondary Programs at PSTSD, and that's the Puget Sound College and Career Network for those of you who are new to us. This is our second workshop today regarding the budget calculator, and thank you all for coming. And we'll get started here in about 1 minute. Haley, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. Hi, everyone. I'm Haley Karcher. I'm also with PSCCN, and I'm also a current graduate student at the College of Ed at UW. Nice to see everyone.
Awesome. Thank you. All right. I don't want to take too much time because we only have an hour and that goes by very fast. So again, we'd like to welcome you in. We're going to start by reading the land acknowledgement. Can you go to the next? Thank you. All right. Welcome again, everybody. Puget Sound ESD, PSESD, recognizes the way to true reconciliation starts with facing and accepting our past, which is rooted in colonization, imperialism, and white supremacy, and authentically moving towards honoring Indigenous people and land we occupy. PSESD acknowledges the region we support and occupy are the ancestral territories of the Coast Salish people. As the original stewards of the land, the Coast Salish people are comprised of tribes that span across the Pacific Northwest coast of Turtle Island. PSESD recognizes that our federal government has stolen land and broken treaties, especially the treaties of Medicine Creek and Point Elliott. We are committed to creating a racially just education system that educates all students on the colonization and the ultimate resurgence of Indigenous peoples' traditions and culture, where they continue to be an integral part of today's society. By learning to lead with transformational values and disrupting patterns of white supremacy, PSESD calls to action the practice of seventh generation thinking and honoring the people and the land. So thank you for that. And now we'd like to welcome you all into the room. So in the chat, if you could, we'd like to do a little chat waterfall. Your name, your preferred pronouns, if you would like to share those with us, your school or organization that you are a part of, and then your favorite guilty treat. So feel free to do that now. Oh, no guilt, just cake. I like that, Nicole. If it's yellow cake, you'd be my best friend.
And I do prefer a chocolate cake, I will say.
Fair enough, fair enough. We can still be friends.
Okay, I will compromise with you on this.
Thank you. A little reality TV. Is it trashy reality TV? Whoever put that in? Some fancy coffees. What makes it doubly fancy? That sounds great. Hot Cheetos. Yes. Honey Nut Cheerios and oat milk. That sounds very healthy, not guilty at all. Do you put bananas in it?
Absolutely not. This is not a banana-friendly household.
Fair enough, fair enough. Anything sweet? Ooh, some jalapeno chips. That sounds delightful. Strawberry, all things Kardashian. Fair, fair. Cheesecake. Cheesecake Factory cheesecake or cheesecake in general?
Yeah, in general.
Hey,
yeah.
Sounds delicious.
Homemade would be better, by the way.
Sounds great. And then some strawberry milkshakes. All right. Thank you all so much for sharing. All right. And now I'm going to introduce to you our director, Mercy DeRamola. I'm going to get your last name correct if it's the last thing I do. And she's going to share with you all who we are.
Yes, thank you so much, Shonda, and welcome everyone to this workshop. Just want to take a step back and introduce the Puget Sound College and Career Network team and our work. So as you may know, Puget Sound College and Career Network, PSTCN for short, is housed at the Puget Sound Educational Service District. And we have the honor and pleasure of working alongside partners, many of whom have been you and others across King and Pierce counties, and really across our state as well, really around building regional capacity in the key areas you see on the screen, which include providing professional learning and resources to partners who support students in high school, transition space, and post-secondary. We also provide coaching and technical assistance to practitioners and leaders as they are implementing different post-secondary access and readiness strategies, pilot support and innovation, much of which has led to the development of the King County Promise program that we are all here to support and learn more about. And also we work really at the systems level as well, aligning, coordinating, providing partnership development, and really identifying ways to identify and remove barriers that face students for first generation from low-income backgrounds and of color, so that they have the opportunity to access and obtain their post-secondary credentials. So we're really excited as a team to welcome you into this space today. And the team itself is, as you can see on the screen, myself, Shonda, and a few folks who are in the chat today. So we have Eileen and Dinda and Leela, who are also joining us on the line today, our phenomenal managers and program coordinators, as well as Haley, who was co-presenting with Shonda today. And then two of our phenomenal managers, Naveed Badri and Christian Granlund, who are also rounding out the Puget Sound College and Career Network team. We are hiring for a new team member, so please check out our communication for more information on that. But thank you on the behalf of the PSTCN team and our PSTSD family for joining us today. Back to you, Shonda.
Thank you all. All right, so today's agenda, we're just really coming together to teach you about the budget overview and to teach you about the calculator, but we're going to do a little bit of an overview about King County Promise. There's going to be plenty of opportunities for you all to have questions and answers and do a little work with the calculator. And then at the end, we'll work on doing some partnerships. So hopefully that's why you all are here also, is to hopefully find potential partners to apply for the RFP. And then Leela will be putting things in the chat for you all as well as we go through. So please feel free to refer to that. If not, you can also come off your mute and ask one of us if you need something, and she will be taking care of you. So thank you, Leela, in the background. So today's goals are to, again, like I said, to go over our King County Promise budget model and to work with the calculator that has been created to help you and your partners put together a budget that is equitable and to help share in the process of seeing how the money can be split between you and your partners. Next slide. So the vision of King County Promise is that all youth of color, and like Mercy was saying, and other historically underserved youth receive high quality support to choose, pursue, and succeed on their post-secondary path. And it's also, the vision is that we're bringing the districts together with the community colleges and with CBOs to create lasting change within the system and to show that this is not only attainable, but it is sustainable. Next. And to do this, we have two impact goals with King County Promise. One is at the student level and one is at the system level. And at the student level is to attain 70% completion with no gap in attainment rates between prioritized young people and their peers. And the prioritized folks are, like we said, the students of color, LGBTQ plus youth, students who have different abilities, and students who come in under the low income or who fall into the low income range, and other students who have been traditionally underserved, excuse me. And then also at the system level goal, again, bringing the districts together, community colleges and CBOs to come together to create something collaboratively and cohesive with an equity focus. Next slide. All right, and then the elements of which we're trying to put together this with all these partners in mind is that we provide enhanced advising, transitions and navigational support, case management and program support. This also comes with a yearly equity stipend for those in the community and technical colleges, post-secondary readiness and completion, and cross-system improvement and alignment. And then for those of you who are new to it, just so you know what we're talking about, when we say districts or K through 12, we're talking about all public K through 12, kindergarten through 12th grade districts within King County. And that includes charter schools. CTCs are community and technical colleges within King County. And then CBOs are community-based organizations who are working with Opportunity Youth and other folks within King County up to the age of 26 years old. And now I'm going to pass this over to Haley, and she's going to go over the budget overview with you all.
Awesome. Hi, everyone. So today we're going to be walking you through the budget calculator that PSTSD has made to hopefully make your life a lot easier as you go through the RFP. Before we get there, I will go through the rationale behind the calculator through a more zoomed out view of the budget overall. The budget calculator is a tool for you to use, again, when you complete your RFP, and it's based off of this rationale and kind of zoomed out picture that I'm about to review. We believe that using the calculator will support consistency with implementing the King County Promise model. We're going to take questions at the end of this section, but if you have a clarifying question, you know, there's a lot of kind of nuts and bolts that I'll be going through, please feel free to drop it in the chat. And if Shonda, you want to stop me and, you know, highlight something, go for it. Or PSCCN folks will answer you in the chat as well. Great. So I'm going to quickly review some of the high level funding information for King County Promise. A lot of this is also in the RFP, and we encourage you to review that if you have not already done so to get a refresher on this information. There's also a recorded RFP info session. So if you have RFP specific questions, you can refer to that. Please hold any RFP specific questions because we're really going to focus on the budget calculator, and we'll give contact info for the county at the end of this session who can answer RFP related questions. So King County Promise is funded through 3 overall streams. There's PASTA funds. PASTA stands for the Puget Sound Taxpayer Accountability Account. There are matching funds from participating organizations, and then there's PSCCN raised philanthropy. In year 1 of funding, PSCCN and the county will work with partners to develop matching expectations for year 2 of funding. That will show up in the calculator. Great, so I'll talk a little bit about the funding flow for King County Promise. Individual organizations will have their own contracts with King County, and they will receive payments from the county for PASTA funds and payments from PSCCN for funds raised by PSCCN. So what's funded through King County Promise? There are 3 different areas that are funded. In the next few slides, I'll dive into each more specifically and unpack some of the bullets that you see here on this slide. I'll start with a brief overview. King County Promise funds 3 main activities: student advising, the equity stipend for CTC students, and partnership support. These 3 areas inform the main logic of the budget calculator. This approach to the budget prioritizes the activities that are most important for a successful King County Promise partnership. So we used research on average costs in the region and other program models to determine the average cost per student, which really undergirds the entire calculator. For CTC and K through 12 students, the cost per student is $1,300 about, and for Opportunity Youth students, it's about $1,700 per student. So this level of funding supports King County Promise and puts us in line with other successful college and career models like College Success Foundation, Gear Up, Guided Pathways. I'm going to dive deeper in the next slides about how we came up with these numbers and per student costs. Based on these per student costs, the budget calculator acts as a template to support your decision-making as you're going through the RFP and budget process. It's not a required approach to use the calculator, but it is encouraged because its intent is to simplify decision-making and include key elements of the King County Promise model. Okay, so let's dive a little deeper into some of these numbers. We have the research behind all of this to back up what we've come up with as far as the ratios and the cost. When determining the cost to provide advising services, the King County Promise model considered the average advisor salary across CBOs, CTCs, and K-12 institutions, advisor benefits, occupancy and administrative costs, and general advising support and overhead. And so when we say support and overhead, we mean things like staff costs related to hiring, supporting professional development, other King County Promise programming. So based on this, the total advisor cost is $130,000 per advisor. If you divide this by 100 students, thinking about our 100 to 1 counselor to student ratio, that comes to $1,300 per student. So advisor could mean a variety of different things. It's not necessarily just the traditional advisor or counselor role. Sorry, I'm getting distracted by the sun. This is like what living in Seattle does to me. I see the sun coming in. I'm like, my brain, what's going on? This funding is intended to go towards supporting student caseload advising and building wide advising strategies. So more than just one role or title could fill these responsibilities that we attach, to the word advisor. Other folks in your organization can do this work other than people you may traditionally call an advisor. We also understand that different organizations have different collective bargaining agreements, and we're not intending for you to change that. We know a CTC and a district may have very different salary ranges for roles that they both call advisors. The funding of staff. Yeah, did someone want to jump in? Or did they accidentally?
Yes, please.
All right, I'm going to keep going. If it's you, you can just mute yourself. I've been there before. The funding of staff will likely not be apples to apples and oranges to oranges across different organizations, and that's okay. We also know that this number is intentionally high, and it's to give organizations the freedom to create pay equity among different organizations with different resources. So these numbers are, they're for counselors. They're there to make sure that people have equitable pay across organizations that have different funding levels. So now we'll go on to the equity stipend. A portion of funds are allocated towards the equity stipend for CTC students. This acts as compensation for CTC students' participation in advising activities. Comes out to $1,000 per year per CTC student, and guidelines for disbursement of these funds will be decided upon between partners, PSTSD, and King County. And then finally, in addition to advising supports and the equity stipend, the King County Promise budget outlines funds for partnership support. This includes funds for coordination and participation in Promise leadership groups, assessment and continuous improvement, and support for data tracking. Each partnership will have the flexibility to select how these funds should flow to partners to provide partnership based on which individual organizations want to take on these roles and have the capacity to do so. These funds will be allocated at 20% of total student support costs, which comes out to approximately $200 per student served.
And then Haley, I'm sorry, could you, there was a request to go over the overhead costs?
Yes, let me just go back there. So, yeah, so overhead costs are just recognizing that, there is the baseline salary cost of having an advisor, but that hiring, right, also has costs attached to it. And there's administrative costs, and there's potentially professional development that's going to be needed for advisors. And so that's what we mean by overhead costs. I don't know if anyone from PSTSD wants to jump in, or if whoever asked the question wants to clarify if that did or did not answer.
Yeah, that's great. So the all-in costs that for advisors, as Haley mentioned, wanted to make sure that we both have a range for the pay equity, but also recognize that it's not just as easy as hiring somebody and having them sit down and start working with students. We wanted to make sure we budgeted in for what it would take to support that person to integrate well with your organizations that apply.
Thanks, Mercy. Okay, I'm going to keep going. If that didn't answer your question, though, feel free to bring it back up as we go on. So a key function of the budget calculator is to guide you through decision points that will lead to a successful promise partnership. As we've mentioned, part of this is deciding how to allocate resources among organizations in the partnership. We want to recognize that building a budget is more than just numbers. It's also about relationship building, and it's also tied to equity, both for the students that are going to be served and for the organizations in the partnerships themselves. We understand that not everyone has access to the same resources, and that therefore equity is a critical component of the conversations that y'all will have when completing the RFP. These are some starting guidelines on this slide for entering into these conversations. I want to note that the RFP also has an equity discussion guide attached to it, and the technical assistance providers that we will give the contact info for at the end of the session also have a really determined focus on equity. So yeah, just wanted to note this, and it will come back up when we have some space to do work together, work collaboratively around using the calculator. Okay, so we're now going to jump into the calculator. Leela at this point she's gonna drop it into the chat as a file. If you could download that and make sure that you can open it now, that would be fantastic. And if you cannot open it, if you can put your email address into the chat, you can also privately chat it to Leela. She will email you it, email an attachment to you, because later we're going to ask you to have this up when we're in breakout rooms. So I'm just going to give everyone a quick pause to download that and troubleshoot if you have any issues. While y'all do that, I'm going to share it on my screen. I'm just doing some moving around. Okay, this should be it. Okay. Shonda, can you give me a thumbs up if you can see the calculator? Okay, great. Thank you. So you should all have something similar to this on your screen, or you should be making your way there. I just want to orient you a little bit to it before I start diving into what's what, so you understand what I'm talking about. So I'm going to mention the yellow areas. So as you can see, there's a few spaces highlighted yellow. I'm going to delete this for right now on this worksheet. These are the things that you're going to fill in. And I'll screenshot, there's screenshots in the slides as we go along. All of those are taken from this sheet and are just supposed to help you know what I'm talking about when I'm talking about it. Note that these are like blue headlines across. That can kind of, I'll mention sections. That's what I mean when I say sections. So you'll see students served at the top, advising support, equity stipend, and then as you scroll down, you'll see partnership support and then total funding at the bottom. So that's a way to help orient you. And then just to start us off, when you're welcome to kind of play around with this as I'm talking. This is where you input your number of students, and you'll see as I input this, a lot of these numbers, those error codes change from errors into numbers. And this is kind of the magic place to put in your student served, and that'll help you play and see how the sheet fills in some of the numbers for you. Any questions about this before I dive into explaining more how it works? Okay.
And you can also put your questions in the chat.
Yes. Great. Let me just get back to my original screen. Okay. Okay. first things first, let's just talk overall, like what's this budget calculator about and what do you need to know to be able to use it? So overall, the information you need to know to have this calculator tell you your organization's budget or total amount of funds available is the number of students you will serve per year and how you're going to divide the funds among the organizations in the partnership. Anything in the calculator that's yellow is to be filled in by you. And just noting, because this shows up in the calculator, in year 1 of funding, PSTSD and the county will work with partners to develop matching expectations for year 2. There are no matching expectations for year 1. Great. So as I noted, the first thing you'll do is determine how many students you're going to serve and then input that number into that yellow sort of area that I showed when I was sharing the calculator. The calculator includes a space to input these number of students, and this will determine the amount of funding based on the advisor to student ratio, which I have screenshotted here, and the cost per student. Great, so step 2, based on your number of served students in each category, the calculator is going to determine your advising support budget for you. The calculator has formatted equations to do this work, and it's going to give you your total funding per student group. The calculator will also tell you, based on the number of students you inputted, how many advisors you can fund. From there, you can determine how much of the funds you will distribute to CBOs to do the advising support work. We had a question about this in our previous session, so I'm just going to say this on the front end. The reason that it just says desired percent to CBOs is because it's assumed that any funds for a K through 12 student are going to go to K through 12, CTC to a CTC, Opportunity Youth. That's where you need to definitely input, because there's not necessarily like an assumed group that's going to take on those funds. But also there's space to note that, right, like CBOs could take on advising work for K through 12 students. And so you can allocate funds to them. And so that yellow portion there is meant for you to fill in for the percentage of funds, 0 to 100 that are going to go to CBOs for that work. Then once you see your advising supports, you figure out how to divide that money. You'll go to the student equity stipend section and see how much funds you will receive for CTC students. The calculator will figure this out for you. Finally, you can see your partnership support budget. You can determine with partners who will do the partnership support work and divide the percentage of those funds right in the calculator. The calculator will use those numbers, those percentages, to determine the amount of funds received per organization at the bottom of the calculator. And so the screenshot here is just an example of what those divided percentages could be. So now, based on filling out the students served, going through those 3 sections, you can see your total funds by organization and student type at the bottom of the calculator. Once you've filled out the calculator, you can work within your partnership to more specifically budget. So the idea is this initial step of filling out this calculator helps you figure out and make some decisions around who's going to do this work, how much money do we have to work with, and then once you have those numbers, you can sit down with partners and figure out what's the rest of your budget, right? The onus is on y'all to plan, but the yellow pieces in this calculator represent key decision points that can help you along the way, which hopefully will make this whole process simpler. Okay, that was a lot of information. I'm going to pause now for questions. Does anyone have, you can feel free to unmute, you can put it in the chat, questions about the calculator or the overall budget. Elaborate on the matching commitment for districts. Yes, thanks, Nicole, for your question. So in the second year of funding, K through 12 partners and CTCs will be required to match funds received from, I believe, just the county. I could be wrong. It could also be PSTSD funds. And the point of that is to kind of to Shonda's earlier point about wanting King County Promise to be sustainable. Right, the idea is that a lot of the components of this program will eventually be sustained by the organizations themselves. And so the matching requirements speak to that. Yeah, feel free to jump in, Shonda or Mercy, if you'd like to.
Yes, that's correct. So that we can keep the program going and it doesn't come to a halt. The requirement is so that you can find matching to continue, like with the equity stipend, and continue paying the staff you either hire or the staff you allocate to this new position.
Any other questions? So at this point, I think what will be helpful for y'all is to get into breakout rooms, and that'll give you a chance to figure out what questions you have, because I know that sometimes as learning about something new, you don't know what you don't know yet. And so I'm going to pass it over to Shonda.
How about now? There it is. All right. Thanks, Haley. All right. So now it's your turn. We're going to give you a little chance to kind of play with the calculator, poke at it. We're going to sit you in breakout rooms. It'll probably be 4 to 5 of you. We got a nice large group today. 4 or 5 of you in a room, plus a person from PSTSD from our team. So you have an opportunity to play with it, but if you have questions, one of us will be there to kind of help you play with it as you go. But this is your space to kind of just poke at it and see if you need help or you need help understanding. The goal is to also kind of give you a little practice to kind of talk out things as you would in a potential partnership. So we're going to give you and your partners 230 students. Uh-oh, what happened? It stopped sharing. There we go. Sorry about that. We're going to give you all 230 students. Some of you are going to pretend to be K12. Some of you are going to be a community college, and some of you are going to be a CBO who serves opportunity youth. The K12 district will have 100 students. The community college will have 100, and the opportunity youth will be 30. So those will be the numbers you plug in. You don't have to worry about trying to guess that part. We kind of set that up for you. But the goal is to just work out a sample budget for year 1 and year 2 of King County Promise, as you would have to do in a potential partnership that you sign up for. And then you're going to produce a sample calculator, and then we'll come back and again, we'll have more time to discuss anything. Leela, can you put us into rooms? Oh, she's already on it. She's fast. So we'll see you all inside the rooms and have fun enjoying playing with the calculator. Thank you, Leela. Exactly. Haley, can you bring up the calculator? And then I have a question from
Yes.
one participant that maybe you can help me with, that we were right in the middle.
Yep. Okay, here's the calculator.
DACA. So if you go down to advising funding.
Yep.
They were advocating for 90,000 students for the opportunity youth. I mean, $90,000. And we calculated that out to 29%, essentially 30%, but it did not come up to the 90,000. So
I'm a little lost by your question. So first how many opportunity youth students did you put in?
We put in 30 for the first year.
Okay.
So that was correct. And then.
So then that gets you $50,000 of funding about total.
Okay. So sorry, Katie, if you're in there. So this is the part, I guess, that we had questions on for the desired percentage to CBOs.
That actually, maybe I can use that. That's the comment I was going to close out on from my breakout group. So just to ground or re-ground folks in when it says desired percentage to CBOs, the balance of promise started thinking about how our students, how is advising funded in our systems in high school and college. And the approach that we're taking with King County Promise restarts that conversation, but we know that CBOs, community-based organizations, play a large part in providing coordinated support and advising for students. So when we have desired percentage to CBOs, in this example for K12 and CTC, we know that there may be some partnerships that may say 100% of the advisors funded through Promise will come from our school-based staff, or they may say we want to do 50% of the advising coming from school-based staff and 50% of the advising to come from our community-based organization partners. So that column there allows you as applying partnership to have that discussion and not assume that it's either 100% or 0% on either end. So in this example, I think, Shauna, where you have the 30%, that example would say $15,000 for advising funding would go to the community-based organization, and then the remaining 70% would go to the either the school district or the community technical college in that example there. And Tamarick, that was what we're covering, kind of finishing out in our conversation. Does that help the discussion?
Thank you. That did make that section more clear.
Okay, great. And Shauna, did that clarify the conversation your group was having as well?
Yes, Katie, was that okay for you?
I'm still having trouble with the with it, because I mean, in our example, I was like, it's like $3,000 a student. So what would you, if we were, as of the opportunity youth, we were saying, I think we need $90,000 of funding, what would you put in the desired percent to CBO column there? So if we wanted to get 30% of the total funding, for example, that looks like it's only giving us 15,000.
Well, you'd have to finish I think the exercise. So there's more.
Okay.
There's if you scroll down the page, you'll see that that conversation talks about how much money goes to staff who advise and support students.
Yeah.
But then scrolling down, there's also funding for partnership support as well, which adds to what else it takes to have a staff member show up to and support and be a part of Promise.
Okay.
And
I guess I was thinking more of like, if we were looking at $90,000 of advising alone.
Yeah, so another way to think,
Or
then
just-
I think where
yeah.
you'd want to go is this. I don't know if you can see like where my pointer is or
Yeah,
what cell I'm
yeah.
highlighting. Okay, great. So this is the total amount of funds to the CBO for advising. And so, I just made up these percentages. And this rate would be tied to like, oh, we're going to serve X amount of students at, the high school that we're partnered with. We're going to serve this amount of students at the CTC. And so we need this amount of the funding. And so you could play with these percentages, right?
Okay.
And then that's going to change the total amount of funding.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks.
Yeah. So we're at about 250. If it's okay with you, Shonda, I'm going to move us to the partnership piece just so we have enough time. Feel free to, put in the chat questions about the calculator. But we're going to keep going so we can get to everything we promised.
Thank you. All right, so for those folks who are still left, you can go to the next slide. We actually have some districts in here today and some community colleges, so we want to introduce to you all the survey. We have lots of folks who are from CBOs who are interested in partnering. So if you're from a district or a community college and you have yet to find your people, please feel free to click on this link. Leela will also put it in the chat for you all to fill out information and have the opportunity to contact folks and try your best to see if you all are serving the same group of folks or if you all are having the same value system and you want to work together with these people, that you can contact them. Their information should be in there, who to contact, their contact info, and where they are located within King County. And the next slide. And if you go ahead and fill your information out in there, that would be grand. So again, there's the link to the survey. We are not exclusively helping folks find partners, but we're just trying to make it easier for you all to find partners. Well, I should say specifically helping you to find partners, but we want to make sure that you all are there. There's also ways to show you through WIDEC of how to create good partnerships and equitable partnerships. And there's lots of resources within that toolkit that can help you to make sure that everybody is thinking of each other within the partnership. And then the next slide. And then of course, if any of you have questions about the RFP specifically, please direct those to the county. Her name is Andrea Howerton, and she is the contact. If you email her, please put KCP RFP subject line, so she knows to how to answer you and to get to you as soon as possible. If you just want more information about King County Promise, please sign up for our newsletter. And there's a link there just for an overview of King County Promise, how it was started, and what the vision is for it, kind of what we talked about at the beginning. And then there's also technical assistance for folks who want to go through, who need help filling out the RFP. The deadline is coming up soon, though, to reach out to these folks, and that's March 28th, and they can answer more questions. The email, their contact information is also on that link. And they can also help with bringing your partnerships together as we go. Thank you, Haley. So when you finish this, please contact the county, I can talk, or the technical assistance to help you with the RFP process. And please let us know if you have any questions regarding King County Promise. We also want to mention that this calculator is not mandatory. It is just a way that we feel will be more helpful for you and your partners to pull together something that works for everybody. And then they have some more info sessions coming up, and Leela also put those into the chat. Those were recorded. They were held in February. So if you want more information, again, for the RFP, it is there. And then the next one.
That's it. That's all she wrote.
That is our presentation today, folks. So thank you all again for joining us. We'll leave the remaining time. We have about 5 minutes. So if you have any questions, concerns, if you need us to go back, review something, please come off mute, or you can put it in the chat and we will help you answer those questions. Thank you, Liz. And if you're being shy, you can also just email Haley or myself, again, for questions regarding the calculator. But if you have questions regarding the RFP, oh, there's a question. Is there somewhere in the budget where we can allocate support services like transportation, food, rent, et cetera, for students?
The short answer to that is no. Most of the biggest fund that goes directly to students is the equity stipend, and then the rest of the funds are for the actual implementation of the program rather than going directly to students, if that answers your question.
Does that help, Michael? Okay. Thank you. Any other questions? Oh, Mercy, were you coming off? Oh, okay. Any other questions?
I will say, sorry, Michael, I'm thinking of a way to sort of add more detail to that to maybe make it helpful is, let's say something like you want to put programming in your college visits. Like you want students to go on college visits in high school, like as an example, and they're going to need transportation for that. That's not something you can't do, right? That's like something we mentioned in the King County Promise model and some of the lit as an activity, but that's not like specifically in the calculator, I guess. That would be something that maybe comes up in your whole school advising supports. That would be like in the more specific budget you make after you've done the calculator to figure out who gets what. And it's definitely something to be thinking about, because you have to think, oh, who's going to handle that? Is it going to be a CTC? Is it going to be a high school person? Who needs those funds? But the calculator wouldn't be like where that shows up, if that makes sense.
Yeah, totally.
Okay.
So I guess I don't know if you saw my second question, but I had also asked if support services are even an allowable expense for this proposal. Like, are we allowed to use any of the funds on things like transportation and rent and food?
There could be if looking at how the overhead is calculated, that's another kind of generous 13% on top of the salaries that we recommend for staff. That could be an area for it that you might see. And I think there's also, if there's a way that, and just financial supports might be another way that you might want to kind of think about that. But I think what's required is it's in the RFP. Anything else that's not, doesn't say it's required, is like, within the world that you can propose. But what we're saying with this approach is knowing that with Promise, the consistent pieces are making sure that there's advisors who are well paid and funded, and making sure that there's the partnerships are really, the folks who are doing the work and supporting students are also kind of budgeted for, as well as direct to student stipend, as well in college. Everything else within and above that is really up to folks to think around and propose, because this is the first phase of Promise. We'll learn together what works and what doesn't work. So okay. I say within that, just, we'll look forward to seeing what folks come up with.
Okay, great, thank you.
Thanks for your question.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, thank you, Michael. Thank you, Mercy and Haley. All right, we're coming up right at 3 o'clock. We want to respect your time. I just want to give a big shout out to my partner and to the team for helping us put this together. And thank you all for coming. If you have any questions, again, regarding the RFP, please contact the county. And if you have any questions about the calculator, please feel free to email Haley or myself.
Or the TA folks.
Or the TA, thank you.
Thanks, y'all.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.